it's super loud. So thanks to while we got that set up. Thanks for the pause there. I know I'm all that stands between all of us, pretzel nuggets, cheese sauce, beers. I'm not sure even what's out there. I've been out there, but so I've got some slides, got a little bit of console magic demo I want to show you. So, you know, let's have some fun. Here are the last one. This is great, isn't it? This event is so cool. I've learned a bunch and I'm really excited about being here. I'm so glad this is in person. My clicker, evidently it took like a 2.5-year nap. Doesn't seem to want to work, so no big deal. So hey everybody, my name is Joy Fasnacht. So I'm with AWS, been with AWS for about 4.5 years. I'm an Ohioan, so I live in Beaver Creek, suburb of Dayton. So I started AWS as a solutions architect. So just like Tom, who we all heard from this morning, had such a great time listening to Tom's keynote too. So I was a solutions architect for about a little over 2 years, had customers Michigan all the way down to Tennessee and Indiana and everywhere, and all over the place. Had such a great time learning from customers, helping them with a lot of different fun things. And 2.5 years ago, switched jobs at AWS. I'm a solutions architect leader now. I have 2 teams, one Ohio team, go Buckeyes. Anybody here from Michigan? All right, my other team's in Michigan. I love them too. No, just kidding. They're an awesome team, really great. So, so what are we doing here today? So I'm a map geek, right? I'm not a GIS expert. So, you know, anybody in here a geospatial information systems expert? Because if so, you're not allowed to ask me any questions, because I will not, I guarantee I will not know the answers. But I wanted to, when I saw this event come up, I saw they were calling for speakers. I thought I really want to come share something that I think is just a really neat new service. So Amazon Location Service. Amazon Location Service is kind of a teenager service in AWS. It was announced and it was kind of limited availability in reInvent 2020. Yeah, time dilation, right? COVID. Anybody else like 2019 or is it 2023? It went generally available June 1st of 2021. So beginning of June this year, it was a year old. So just wanted to kind of talk to you about it and maybe get you like enthused about, you know, what it can do, learning more about it, share with you a little bit about what it does. Does anybody already use Amazon Location Service? Maybe a nod. maybe I've heard of it. Cool. Well, this is a beginner, you know, this is beginner kind of content. So just do a little bit of just brief discussion, right, on location-based services. So a little bit about, I guess, my background and why I love maps so much. So before I came to AWS, I spent over 20 years doing software development. Not a map expert, but ended up in a space down supporting Wright-Patterson Air Force Base where we were doing a lot of work with maps, right, and with location. And it was absolutely fascinating. I just thought it was a really neat space. And I've always enjoyed maps even as a child. I've kind of come to the realization since I started with AWS that I think I like maps so much because I literally always lost. Like Amazon has sent me a lot of different cities and I never rent a car because I don't like driving in strange cities. So I walk everywhere and I have been literally lost every place I've been. Toronto, Boston recently, DC. The scariest one was actually New Orleans. I got up really early in New Orleans. I was down there. I'm like, oh, cool, that beignet place, that famous beignet place. I'm gonna walk down there. I never found it. And I wandered around New Orleans. And I'm like, I think I need to get back. But anyway, so that was kind of my background with maps, right? Is I was a customer of AWS before, but not in the mapping sense. But we were doing a lot of work in my former world with location-based services and trying to figure out, you know, how to get the best quality maps, how to get them economically. And I barked my shins, honestly, as a developer and a lead developer on a lot of the problems that our customers shared with us as AWS. The location, right? It's everywhere. I mean, like everybody knows now, they pick up their phone, they want to go somewhere. what's the first thing you do? Like the first thing I did before I pulled out my driveway this morning, brought up Google Maps and I mapped how to get here. We're all so used to that. And it's in everything, right? It's in every app that we use, location-based services. It's really essential to all of us now. Now, I personally am foldable AAA maps in the car, years old. Some of you might be, I printed off MapQuest maps in the car, years old. And some of you might be, well, I've always had a thing in my hand that tells me how to get where I'm going, years old. But maps are just an essential component of our human life. So these are some of the things, right, that customers need to do with maps. Standard stuff, nothing really, I think, nothing really that would shock anybody there. But these are some of the challenges, right? These are some of the problems that people have when they're trying to build an app or build something that uses location-based services. It can be slow getting started. Some of that is like acquiring a license, right? You got to acquire a license, you got to pay for it. It's going to be like this new bill that's coming in, and your organization is like, wait, what are we doing here? So it can be slow. Sometimes, like, you've got to choose between location providers. It's a trade-off sometimes, right? What's the best quality of that location data? What's the price point you can do? Security and privacy, right? Big concern. Like, do I share like where my assets are at with somebody else as a company? That might be a little concerning. And then cost control, right? So these are common challenges we heard about at AWS. And as I mentioned, kind of a new service, right? Amazon location service. It solves a lot of these problems for our customers. That's why I think it's just a pretty cool thing to share with everybody. And I'm not here to sell it to you. I'm going to show you how to use it for free. I'm going to show you how to use some open source tools that can help you use it too. I want you to, if you have a need on it, right? Kick the tires. It's like free for 3 months, but read the fine print. Everybody knows that. So these are the key 5 things. And again, like, takeaway slide, right? If there's 5 key things that you hear about today that location service does, it's these 5 things. I really want you to like see those. I'm going to jump into my console. I'm going to demo a few of those things to you. Maps, right? That's table stakes. You got to have a map. You got to have a base map. You want your users to be able to maybe configure it. Obviously, zooming, very important. Places is the next thing. And those 2 things go hand in hand, right? Maps and places. So places, just think of it like a position index, right? I want to be able to search. I want to say, oh, I want to go to, what did I search for? Did I get here? I actually searched for the name of this hall. And so, that's searching, right? That's a place. So those 2 things on that side kind of paired. Then the things on the other side, so geofencing and tracking. These 2 things also go hand in hand. I'm going to show you how that works in the console. I'm going to kind of demonstrate some of that to you. If you're not familiar with geofencing, it's basically like drawing a polygon, if you will, around an area, tracking assets, right? Tracking location, a couple different ways you can do that. And then routing, that's the thing we all live and die by. Like, where's my pizza? I mean, Domino's has that now, right? They have a tracker. They got their driver on the map. He is arriving at your door in 27 minutes. That's tracking. So I'm not going to drain these slides, right? I got a ton of stuff and I want to get into the console. These will all be provided to you. But some of these things are the things that location service just does out of the box that helps you get to prod faster, helps you get something that's super integrated with all the AWS services that you already can use. We've got tons of tools and SDKs, of course, for the APIs. Integration with, of course, CloudWatch, CloudTrail IAM. And then, again, super key thing to look at here. This thing is gold. Amazon Event Bridge. So as you have resources that you're tracking, you've got location-based stuff going into your cloud, those things land in Event Bridge. You can branch out from Event Bridge to tons of different services. You can do so many different things with Event Bridge. Think of Event Bridge as like the thread of your event bus, your event-driven architecture. All right, so let's talk data providers. So Amazon Location Service is one of those, they're really kind of a unique service for us, right? So many times we're offering infrastructure or we're offering infrastructure, we're offering a managed thing, right? A database. This is a really unique proposition because it's both a service and data. So that's kind of a cool thing to think about. And there's some nuances with that if you're gonna use this, you gotta kind of look at and understand. So we have two key data providers right now for our maps and our location-based services and things like the geospatial stuff that goes on under the covers when you're doing a geofence. One of them is Esri. So Esri, if you're familiar with like ArcGIS or anything like that, Esri is a company that does that. And then the other one is here. So I've got a quick slide on each one of these. They have slightly different flavors to them, right? There's different reasons to use each of them. But the cool thing about this is you can access the data, both Esri and here, with the same API calls. So that gives you and us the flexibility eventually. If we add more data providers, your APIs are not going to change. So that's kind of a neat thing. I will give you this kind of heads up though, right? I want to make sure you're fully informed. The data that comes back from those API calls for those providers is different. So the JSON and the formula, the form of the JSON that comes back when you call, get location, blah, 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 for Esri is different than it is for here. So just be aware of that, the signatures can change. All right, so Esri, a little bit about Esri, very popular like at the state and county government levels. I've definitely seen this heavily used in military applications as well. When I go to my county, right, and I'm looking at properties, it's Esri that's backing that up. Tons of map data though. Here, so, interesting, great technology partner for AWS. I love it that they have like 2,000 different validations before they ever publish like some different new map data, some fresh map data. Maps change all the time, right? That's the really cool thing about them, but also the really hard thing about them to manage is there's constant shifts to borders, to what's in locations. So these map providers, they really have to be on the ball and they really are constantly sourcing fresh data for their maps. All right, so that's a little bit about Esri, some of that here. All right, this is the thing I'm stoked about for this particular type of community group is 3-month free tier, right? You can kick the tires on this with quite a bit of different capabilities for a while to see if this fits your needs. So the pricing plans, like always read, right? That's just a best practice. I would recommend always go to that pricing page for any service you're going to use and understand it, right? Understand how it's bundled, how the different API calls are structured. Setup budget alarms too, by the way, totally not related to maps, but just another good best practice. And we can't talk about an AWS service without talking about privacy and security. Super important to us. And this is where Amazon Location Service is differentiated in a lot of ways. So your data stays in your account, right? So whatever geofences you might create, whatever asset tracking data might come into your account stays in your account. We don't have access to it as AWS or Amazon, right? Nobody's going to sell that data. Nobody's going to use that data for marketing purposes. It's your data. Remember the 5 things, right? We got maps, we got places, we got geofencing, tracking, and routing. Important to know that maps, so the 2, geofences and tracking, stays in your account. What we have to do though to serve up those maps, to serve up those routes, is we're making calls to either Esri or here, depending on which one you select. Those requests do go outside of your account. We have to send them to a third party, but it's all anonymized. So that data is anonymized and sent off, and then the request comes back. So just be aware of that. It's all It's all documented in the end user agreement, and I'm actually gonna like show you where to go read in the end user agreement about location service, because again, since it's providing data, it's a bit of a different flavor on that user agreement. I want people to know where that is. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of this. Some of the key things, right, that we see people doing. I've got some architecture diagrams. We'll probably bring up a few of those. I may hop back and forth between this screen and my console, just to kind of show you where some of these things are located. Don't do tons of stuff in the console. If you're going to go to prod, you know, I have to. I'm paid to say this. You got to use CloudFormation. No, I'm kidding. But console is the easiest way to show it right now. So asset tracking, right? Super important to so many companies. This whole supply chain conversation, right, that everybody is having. So much of that is about, you know, where am I as a provider? Where are my customers? And where's their stuff? Or where's my stuff? The where, right? Where in the world are all of these things? Where is it all located in relation to each other? Very, very key element of business right now. So let's talk asset tracking a little bit. Like, what could an architecture for asset tracking actually look like? So a couple different ways that you can do this, right? So if I'm the asset, right, I'm the customer. So I may have a mobile app on my phone that has been written with the Amazon Location SDK. So, you know, this thing tracks me, right? If I have location tracking on my phone, like every place I move, right? I could be sending location tracking information somewhere. I probably am 6 different ways. So that's the top, right? We've got mobile clients with SDK. Another option that you can have for asset tracking is IoT, right? Internet of Things. You've got devices with trackers on them that send GPS location. So one of the key things I wanted to share here, I mean, again, these are going to be available. I'm not going to drain this whole architecture, but one element of this to look at is if you're sending things from assets that are not using an SDK, they're using some sort of messaging into the AWS IoT core in AWS Cloud. You can basically receive those messages in IoT core, and you can send them through a Lambda into Amazon Location Tracking. So you can actually use, this is how you can use this to track assets, right? So those assets could be a lot of different things. I had a customer that was doing something very similar to this before Amazon Location Service was announced, though, so about 4 years ago, with great big huge mining machines, right? So they had these giant mining machines in South America. They needed to know where they were in these open strip mines. They had like an IoT device front and back. It was so big that they had to have actually 2 devices on that to kind of keep it geolocated. So that's, you know, that's kind of the flavor, right? Could be packages, could be pizzas, could be giant mining equipment. So that's a bit about asset tracking. Lots of different things then, of course, through here that you can do with this. I am gonna switch to my console and just show you a bit about tracking and geofencing. I'm gonna do it all at the same time here. All right, so like I said, I'm going to jump over here into the console because I just want to show you some of what can be done. So if you're familiar with it, right? So you open up your console and you can go to Amazon Location Service. There's a try it button. Go watch the tutorial on YouTube. It walks you through it. It's like a 4-minute tutorial. It's super easy. I'm not going to run through that. It shows you how you can like draw a little truck on a map and you get, you know, event notifications and things like that. I'm not going to actually walk through that. I did want to show you though maps, because I want to show you the variety of different maps that you can actually create, right? So before you start, you know, if you're building a mobile application, one of the things if you want to put a map in it, you will go here and create a map resource. So the map you can make multiples of these, right? Let's say you want your users to be able to switch back and forth between certain looks. Definitely recommend you stay with one provider though, right? If you're gonna pick Esri, stay with Esri. If you're gonna pick here, stay with here. You can use them differently in different areas of the world though. I won't get too much into that. If you want to talk about it later, we can talk about that. But so lots of different looks and feels to these maps. So pretty common way, right? I've seen this myself. We got a street map and your users might want to switch and say, oh, I want to see what the terrain looks like around here. So you can switch back and forth. To do that, you would need to create 2 map resources in here in your AWS console. Lots of code in here on how to embed that in your application. Lots of sample code available. So that's the map resource. So you would do that first, right? Then let's say you want to add search capability to that map. So then you would go into adding a place index. It's not super interesting. It'll just kind of bring up a little text box for you to create a place index. But let's talk about places for a minute, what you can do with a place index on your map. So this does 3 key things. One is geocoding. So geocoding is the thing where you put in, like I always get these backwards. You put in a name, right? I want to go to 2357 Brown Street, Dayton, Ohio. And it basically geocodes that into a latitude and a longitude so that the map knows where to go, right? And then reverse geocoding is just the opposite of that. I've got a latitude and a longitude. I plug that into an API call and it gives me back, oh, that's the Eiffel Tower or whatever. The third thing you can do with the place index is you can do that drop down search idea, right? So I start typing Arby's and it brings me up everything that starts with ARB or whatever, right? So that kind of close to where you're at because it knows where you are. So that's what a place index is. So remember on the 5 key things, right, that the Amazon location service does, maps and place indexes kind of tied together. Then let's talk about geofences and trackers real quick. Because again, I do want to get you out on time. All right, so geofences collections basically are collections of polygons, right? So it's a polygon around this building, or it's a polygon around this whole block, or it's a square around the bathroom. I don't know, just making stuff up here. But a geofence collection can actually contain up to 50,000 different polygons, geofences. So you're charged through the pricing model of Amazon Location Service by how many geofence collections you have. But you can have up to 50,000 different geofences in there. So, consider that, right, as you're considering how to build your system. I wanted to show you this too, because again, I'm all about cheap and free. Geofences, like I'll show you what it looks like to create a geofence collection here.
So would something like the iRobo that runs on the house built on maybe the geofence?
I actually am not sure how those work. I've always been curious about that. So, but I was researching how small a geofence can be. A geofence you only have to have 3 vertices on a geofence in location service, and it can be an area as small as 77 square inches. That's pretty small, but now standard GPS, right, that's like on our phones, it's not quite that accurate. We track up to 6 digits of precision, which is 11 centimeters, 4.4 inches. So we can track it, but the limitation becomes, what can this do, right? Or what can the GPS device on the Roomba or whatever it is do? There's beacons, right? And this is way outside my area of expertise, but yeah, there are beacons. Yeah. So you can use different types of location on the device itself to get a little bit more accurate, definitely. So again, this is not super interesting, right? You've added a geofence. I can't draw it on the map here. What I can do though is drop in what's called a GeoJSON file. And this is where I wanted to show you the cool free stuff. All right, so this is a tool I found when I was playing with this earlier this year, geojson.io. So in this tool, you can basically drop polygons and create geofences anywhere in the world, right? So I'm from Xenia, Ohio. So my favorite thing was to go to Xenia and basically do a bunch of geofences around places I knew in Xenia. So I went in here and I just started drawing boxes, polygons. You can draw different shapes. Again, only limitation is it has to have 3 vertices. The really nice thing about this tool that I loved is there's no messing about with this JSON, right? It just generates the JSON for you with the latitudes and longitudes. You save it out as a GeoJSON file. You import it into the geofence section of Amazon Location Service, and boom, you've got all of your geofences set up in there. And again, your geofence collection can have 50,000 of these things. So that's quite a bit. One of the other use cases and architectures, again, I may not get to, is like this whole idea of tracking when things are arriving. These things can be created on the fly via Lambda, right? So let's say a customer orders something and they're in their house, they're in their certain location, their location because you've got the app, right, that has where they're located. You could actually on the fly create a geofence for, let's say, their block, right? That's how these routing and delivery systems notify you. They're like, oh, the pizza has entered that geofence area. And that's all happens through this geofencing in combination with the trackers. All right, so I'll go to trackers next. So you can create a tracker here and you can connect these 2 things up, right? So you can connect up trackers with geofences. So the tracker is basically a container, if you will. So it's a container of location events that are coming in. And again, it could be a location event from the SDK of an app you've written for a mobile application, or it could be an IoT device that is sending IoT messages and location into IoT core that you're then lambdaing. Is lambdaing a verb? It is now. Lambdaing in to Amazon Location Service. So all of this location data is flowing in and flowing into a tracker. And where you have the intersection of trackers and geofences is where you get event-rich notifications, right? Hey, this thing just entered this geofence, or hey, this thing just exited this geofence. That all flows into event-rich, and you can then move on from there with whatever it is you want to do with that notification. So that's trackers. Did I need to? Trackers. So the cool thing about trackers, I'm going to switch back to the slides real quick and go down to, I'm going to show you the geomarketing idea here. So the cool thing about trackers is, again, remember the tracking data of your assets, your customers, whatever stays in your account, doesn't go external, doesn't go anywhere else. It's encrypted. These things, you can use customer managed keys to encrypt this data, customer managed KMS keys. So nobody can see this data but you. But that tracking data, you can store it. Right? It's historical, right? And this is where you get some really interesting possibilities with analysis. So, if you're tracking things, I mean, you can do some really interesting analysis on that. Like, let's say I own a delivery donut chain and my delivery donut drivers, like I see from their tracking of the apps that I've installed with them that, they're wandering around and they're going to Dunkin' Donuts on their way to take the donuts to other people or something like that. So historically, right, I can track that data, I can store it, I can save it in S3. Now this particular architecture diagram shows analyzing that data with Redshift. And this is for the purposes of marketing, right? Like, oh, my customers, I don't know, they go here and then they go here and then they go here and then they go here. They wander around Amazon and Kroger 5 times like me. But Redshift, you don't have to go that far, right? Let's say you're just doing some analysis. You've got that data in S3, you could use Athena, right? You can just use Athena to query that data. So I thought that was a really interesting aspect of this. All right, cool. So again, tons of different application architectures on here. I knew I wasn't going to have time to get to all of them, but I did want to bring them up. Another key thing I want you guys to all see. Getting started. This Amazon location samples repo on GitHub under our AWS samples is rich with samples. There is tons of front end, right? You got to write a mobile app for a lot of this stuff. And like, how do you do that? There's Tangram, there's MapLibre, there's Leaflet, Amplify, all on that location samples. So super important to note. Blogs too, wanted y'all to see that. Where is it available? Sorry, I repeated the free tier because I was so excited about that, but 9 different regions, right? So 3 in North America, 3 in Europe, and 3 in APAC. So this is where Amazon Location Service is currently of our global footprint, global regions. I think that's it. The last thing I did want to show you. Sorry to get out of that. Go back to my browser real quick. Last thing I wanted to show you, because again, I think this is just important for you to see and understand and read. And because this is a really different service, again, because it's providing data too, and it's providing third-party data that we're kind of brokering through Amazon Location Service, wanted you to be able to know where you should go in the end user agreement to understand the differences here. There's some different things about it, right? Asset tracking, if you're going to track assets, you can't use Esri Maps for that. That's against the agreement. You can use here, but you can't use Esri Maps. There's also some things to realize geographically that were very interesting to me when I was reading through some of the background on this. And I'm not sure if it's called out in here, but Japan and South Korea, the maps are handled differently there, right? And so I think I saw that we got some updates from, I think it was here, to have more finely rendered maps of Japan, which is just super interesting, right? It's just things that are different about this service that are not things I've ever really had to think about before. So anyway, go to section 82, right? And read the fine print as always. But yeah, some really interesting things in there. And so I hope that you can kick the tires a little bit. I hope if mapping is of any interest to you and your business, that that this is something you might be interested in and you might get some value out of. I think that's about all I needed to share. That was all the slides. Again, you'll get the slides. There's lots more architectures to go into that. I found them a little repetitive, right? It's the 5 key things that they're doing. We didn't talk about routing. Routing is important. One big key thing with routing to realize is that we now added something called matrix routing in Amazon Location Service. That was a recent thing. So you can actually send a bunch of destinations and a bunch of starting points, and it will call whichever you've used, Esri or here, with all those destinations and starting points. It'll calculate routes for all the combinations. So you can do like a 350 by 350 starting points, 350 destination points. You get 122,500 routes back. I mean, that's pretty wild, and it's amazing to think of, and you can just do that with an API call. Be aware that one sometimes can take 8-9 seconds. So yeah, just be aware, right? Not something you want to do. You're not allowed to use Amazon Location Service, interestingly, for in-car driving. So there's a reason for that, right? All right, cool. That's all I've got. My email's up there. It is 4:16. You're a minute late for happy hour. I'm sorry, but happy to hang around. And if you've got any questions,